Hi, let's look at the second part, starting from number 20. So what we need to do is we need to express them, or simplify them rather, using the rules of exponent. So now let's look at the first component, square root of 16 x squared. So when you look at that, square root makes the 16 into 4, and x squared into x. Now we're going to multiply that by x to the 2/3 power. Now, second, when we have cube root, what is cube root of 8? That's equal to 2. And then cube root works like a 1 over 3, so raised to 5 makes it 5 over 3 power. Now what we're going to be doing is we're going to combine those two factors together. As you can see, 4x, x has 1 as an exponent right over here. So when you add up 1 and then 2/3, then we get 4x to the 5/3 power. Wait a minute, that's the same thing as the other term that we have over here. So we get 2x to the 5 over 3 power. When you combine them together, we get 6 x to the 5 over 3 power. Now, when you can see that denominator 3 represents the cube root. So that's why choice 2 becomes our answer. Alright, let's look at number 23. So here we have focus is on -2, 5, and directrix is y equals 9. So if I were to sketch that a little bit, let's assume that that's -2 and that's 5. So that's where we have focus is on. And y equals 9 has to be above that. So let us assume that that's the y equals 9. Now, then vertex of the parabola has to be between directrix, that's over here, and then focus. Then let us say that's the midpoint. How can I figure that out? You can use the midpoint formula. As you can see, x will be the same, so it's going to be -2, but y will be midpoint between 5 and 9, which is equal to 7. Now, since center is at -2, or rather vertex is -2, 7, we realize that the answers that are possible is choice 3 or 4. But as you can see, our parabola is going down. Since it's going down away from the directrix, we should have negative sign. This choice 4 becomes the answer. Now, number 22. Given the following polynomial. So, for this question, it would have been much better if you knew that a plus b plus c square, quantity squared, is equal to a squared plus b squared plus c squared, and plus 2ab, and then plus 2bc, and then plus 2ac. That's what we end up getting. So, we can rewrite this one as a squared plus b squared plus c squared. Notice that's what we have over here. And then 2 can be factored. Then we have ab plus bc plus ac. Notice that's the bottom one. Then my left side can be rewritten as x. And then a squared plus b squared plus c squared would have been equal to y plus 2 times z, which is choice 4 becomes the answer. Now, let us look at the next question. Now, so here, I already end up doing the our answer is equal to 4, but because when you look at it, we have this is a given function over here, where t is in years. Now, but what we want to do is we want to convert them into daily interest rate. So that means we need to raise by 1 over 365 over here, and then multiply that by 365. So in other words, when you have a equals p 1 plus r to the t power, and when you want to convert that into effective rate, it will be P equals 1 plus R to the 1 over n power. So if, in this case, from year to monthly would have been equal to n being 12. Year to daily makes n equal to 3. Daily, 365. And then we're going to get NT. That's basically what we would have done, which is choice 4. Now, number 24. Now, so we have one container weighs X ounces and the other container weighs X pounds. Notice that the units are not the same. Ounces versus pounds. But we want to have 124 ounces. So what we need to do is we need to convert pound into the ounces, which is 16y, because that's 16 ounces per pound. So y pound means 16y. So we get 124 over x plus 16y. The region is, because that makes one package, one of the x and then one of the y, but in ounces. Alright, so here we have this question, a survey about this television viewing preference. Now notice that it says, given the student prefers watching a reality show on the TV. Reality show is right over here. So given that they are in this category, which is total 213, the question is, what's the probability that it will be from freshmen, which is 103 out of total, which is 213. So that becomes our answer. Alright, number 26. They want you to sketch this one from -1 through 4 domain. So then, as you can see over here, I use the calculator to come up with the values and then plot them. Once you plot them, you just have to connect them approximately. That becomes our answer. Alright, number 27. So here they want us to express our answers in a plus bi form. Then chances are that we have to use the quadratic formula or completing the square. So x must be equal to -5. We are using the quadratic formula, plus or minus square root of 5 squared, which becomes 25, minus 4 times a, which is 2, and then c, which becomes 8. Now, let's try to clean this one up a little bit. -5 plus or minus, when you combine within the radical side, we get -39, divide the whole thing by 4. But since they want you to write it in a plus bi form, we need to separate this one. -5 and the 4 comes together, and plus or minus I, because we have square root of negative number, and square root of 39 all over 4 as well. Alright, so that's how we can do number 27. Number 28. So we want to see how this one can be biased. So in the trucking company decides to initiate the employer month of the employee month of the year program. Now, the thing is, highest number of positive comments will win the recognition. And then the one other thing is, most comments based upon these things could have been negative, not about positive. So it can be a little bit, skewed, not maybe. So it may not be the best representation. And that's in fact one of them. Second, determine the quotient and remainder. So in this case, what I'm going to do is I'm going to use a synthetic division. But to do that, I'm looking for value of a that makes 3a minus 2 equal to 0. That will be equal to 2/3. So I'll be using 2/3 in the synthetic division. And then plug in all those values. First, 6 comes down, and then 2/3 times 6. That's equal to 4. And then combine them together, we get 15. Multiply that by 2/3, then we get 10, which will result in 6, and 2/3 of that becomes 4 and negative 5. So we have quotient wise, we have to divide by 3 because the fact that you have used 2/3, then this implies that our quotient denominator was a minus 2/3. But what we're actually looking at is 3 times of that. So therefore, we need to divide by 3 over here. Then we get 252 as the coefficients of the quotient, but negative 5 still stays. So we get 2a squared plus 5a and plus 2a and negative 5 over to give an expression 3a minus 2. Alrighty, let's move on to the next problem. Number 30. So we have the recursive formula described in this sequence below. They want us to do the first 4 of them. So as you can see, a sub 1 is given 3, so that's 1. A sub 2, as you can see, if this becomes 2, then this becomes 1. 1 before, recursive formula. So it must be equal to 1 minus 2 times my previous term, which is equal to 1 minus 2 times 3, which is, now we know that 3 is 7. A sub 3 will be equal to 1 plus 2 times of my previous term, which is equal to 7. So 2 times 7, which is 14, plus 1 becomes 15. Now fourth one, here we have 1 plus 2 times the previous term, which now becomes 1 plus 2 times 15. Now we know that to be 31. Now we want to justify this one, which we can use the we realize that we want to find out the ratio of a sub 2 over a sub 1 has to be equal to a sub 3 over a sub 2 in order for that to be geometric sequences. Now, so second term over the first term is 7 over 3, and then third term over second term is 15 over 7, and you can see that they're not equal to each other. So therefore, alright, so that becomes our final answer. Let's look at the next question, number 31. A Wells family is looking to purchase a home in suburb of Rochester. Alright, so this is the formula. What I need you to do is I need you to look at the formula and then see if that makes sense to you. Make sure you understand what each letters represent. Here M represents monthly payment, and P represents the amount borrowed, and R represents the annual interest rate, so forth and so on. So here we have P is equal to 13735 because out of total price he made this much deposit, so we are borrowing that much less. Rate is equal to 0.036 because that's 3.6%, and N equals 30. Times 12 because it's 12 years, and we get 360. So what I have done on the bottom is that I plug in all those values based upon the formula given, and you can see that all those things has been plugged in. Once that happens, it was what, 124. So therefore, 624. 624 would have been our answer. Alright, number 32. An angle theta is in standard position. The terminal side passes through 2, -1. And we're looking for sine of angle. How do you find the sine of an angle? Sine refers to the y value. So we have y, but square root of x squared plus y squared, magnitude of, or the length of the origin. We just have to divide by that. Especially when the circle is not the unit circle, as in this case. So y value was equal to -1, and square root of x squared plus y squared, then simply 2 squared plus -1 quantity square. Then we get to realize -1 over square root of 5. So that is our answer. If you don't rationalize that, we get square root of -5 over 5. All right, number 33. We're going to solve this one algebraically. Then what are we going to do? We're going to subtract x. Then we get 2x minus x becomes x. 2 times 15 becomes 30 minus 9 becomes 21. So now what we're going to be doing is we're just going to square both sides. Then we get x squared plus 42 x, and then 441. Then what we're going to be doing is we're going to add 2x and subtracting 6 from both sides. Then we get to realize that 0 equals n x squared plus 44x and plus 433. All right, so what are we going to do? You can realize that it factors out into x plus 29 and then x plus 15. Out of those two answers, you can see the only one that works is negative 15. If you plug in negative 29, both sides will not be equal to each other. All right, let's move on to next question. Number 34. So Joseph was curious to determine if the scent improves memory. All right, so this is the his result, scented paper and the unscented paper. So calculate the difference in means. And so it goes on, it explains this one further. Okay? And this is the picture that we see. Now what they want you to do is use the simulation result, determine the interval that represents mid 95%. That simply means 2 standard deviations above the mean, and also 2 standard deviations below the mean. All right, now so that's basically what we have here. 25 minus 18 is 5, because in here earlier we got the average to be 25 and 18. So you know that the difference between those two is 5, which is significant. So few of them will exhibit the same quality as to the other stuff. So that's why it's significant. Why? Because it's 2 standard deviations beyond our limit here. All right, let's look at number 35. Now Carla wants to start a college fund for her daughter. Now she put 63,000 into the account, and growth rate is 2.55. And compound it monthly. All right. Write a function c sub t that represents the amount of money in the coconut account t years after the account that is open now. So calculate algebraically the number of years it will take for account to reach 100,000 to the nearest hundredth of a year. All right. So now, so when you look at a c of t, must be equal to initial money put in, and then that's basically what we have. Now, if you had to plug in 100,000, which was the case for some other people, then we get 1.583 as a division, because 100,000 divided by 63,000 would have been that much. And then what we want to do is we want to raise this one to 12th power, because Obviously, these values are not the same as this one. So if you have to continue, then log base of that value. All right. Then we get 12t to find the t value by itself. Then in this case, t must be equal to 18.13. All right. So that's basically what we have. Alrighty, let's move on to number 36. Height can be described in this way, where t represents the number of seconds since the measurement began. So here, when we look at it, we want to find out the average rate. Then we have to just look at that expressions and then put them into the calculator. So we get 2 over 14, because as you can see, when t was equal to 2y, y was equal to 14. And then my t was equal to 1, it was equal to corresponding value. So we get negative 12 centimeters per second. Now, after that, what they wanted you to do was, they want you to find the values that makes h of t equal to 0. So I simply sketched it. Okay. Then I try to look for the intersection using the calculator, and intersection was 2.2 and then 3.8. But of course, 3.8 wouldn't work because it's the simply the coming from the piston. So I think 2.2 would have been the correct answer. All right, let's move on to the next problem. Now, website popularity is recorded in thousands. So when we have 16,000 times, then the number that represents is 16. All right, so 16,000 miles will be simply 16, and p is equal to log 16 minus 4. Okay, that's the value that we end up getting. Now, using a bunch of other values, we were able to figure out that two graphs would have looked like this. I used the table of values because that seems to be easiest. I made sure that I included the x-intercepts. Now, the second one is those two graphs has to be equal to each other. Graphically speaking, it was around 14,000. But if you use the calculator, then you would have realized the same thing as well. All right. That's it. I'll see you later. Bye.